be removed from the class. My original demands: remove him from the class. He needs to apologize publicly to all persons living with HIV disease in this city. The school needs to enforce its existing AIDS policies. And I don't think that's very unreasonable. And the real hypocrisy around all this is, I'm going through all this, right? No support. Last week they have a rally for Magic Johnson. It's totally amazing. This is no reflection on Magic. I think what he's doing is fabulous. I think he's very courageous. But the response, when it's a faggot with AIDS, we let him die. If it's somebody else, then it's important. November 11th. When that day came and went, and my attorney and I both called after several days of phone calls, we got a call back saying, oh, we made a mistake. You know, there's no sense of urgency around this issue. They don't realize that this is life and death. You don't play around. It's whatever the reason, whether it's incompetence, whether it's lack of understanding, lack of compassion, whatever the reason is, none of the reasons are acceptable. The doctor's excuse. The next thing, I'm not exactly sure what went down, but it was something questioning of my health. And as I went to hand him the excuse, I said, I have AIDS. This is verbatim. I really wish you hadn't told me that. I said, why? He said, well, I have considerations. I said, like what? Like handling your papers. This is in front of 59 students, not in private. And then he went on to talk about they don't know everything about AIDS, and that he would have to think about whether or not I could remain in his classroom. When we had a break, we returned to the classroom. He started off by saying, I want to apologize to the student with AIDS. And I thought, well, maybe he came around. And then he proceeded to say, I'm sorry if I embarrassed you, but you're the one that said you had AIDS. I said, I'm not embarrassed about having AIDS, and that is not the issue. He once again repeated that he had considerations. It was his classroom, and he would take a week to think about whether or not he would allow me in the class. When I informed him of my legal right to attend the class, and state, federal, and city laws protecting my right to be in the class, he then said, if I have to, I'll see you in court. Another thing that's very interesting about this, he then claimed the following week a letter came out from his attorneys that's in the press packet, where his attorney said that what he wanted to do was take a week to become educated. Well, the next week, he still refused, in front of 59 people, on camera, when the press was here, to touch my papers again, even after he was supposedly educated. I'm sorry. Where's one of these press releases? I'll find. There's a woman named Pat.
You can touch it.
Okay. Okay. Pat has.
What was the date?
I don't mean the end, you know.
We're here.
Well, I might run. Corey said. Hi. One more time.
Oh my God. Please.
Thanks for being here.
Let's go right here.
You guys.
Wow.
Hi. Hey, come on. No.
Relocate.
I think we should get this.
No, I understand.
There's enough people that I'm trying to. So I'd like to sit here and you all watch me because I don't even know what I'm doing. So.
Thank you, Pat. I just here really to talk about Wayne as a human being, as a person. I teach psychology here, and Wayne was a student of mine several years ago. And he's a very, very good student, a very sensitive person, a very caring person. Did very well in the class, related very well to the other students. And he came through to me as a very honest person, a very caring person. And he wants to do the right thing. He's very sensitive to his own personal situation with AIDS. I'm here really just to say he's a very credible person. Came back to school, and within a year or two, he finished our program, and our program is to train people as paraprofessionals. And he's one of the first people who finished our program and went to work. Rather remarkable. And he's a very special person. Thank you.
Professor, could we ask you a quick question?
Certainly.
As a faculty member, how do you feel about the way this has been handled?
Well, it's a good question. No one likes to see a situation like that occur. I think everybody honestly try to do their best to handle it in the most effective way. People had different visions, and it's a very scary subject, and therefore you have a lot of things going on. You have the faculty member, you have the students, you have Wayne. They all have sensitivities, they're all concerned. I think the school handled it as well as you could handle this kind of situation.
So in your view, the apology from the administration to Wayne is enough?
I think it's not only an apology, it's how you handle the class situation with Wayne in it, how you handle the other students, how you handle the whole issue of AIDS. Now, we had just a couple of weeks ago an incredible program educating us as faculty members and classified staff at the school about AIDS, because I don't think this particular situation that Wayne found himself in is that unique. Because people are scared about AIDS, and that includes faculty, in my view, it includes classified, it includes everybody. And when you get that kind of a situation going, it's not unusual to see people reacting. We need more education. We have an AIDS center on campus. We had this program, and there's going to be a program for students in December. So I think it's been handled well.
Do you think the professor should have handled it more sensitively?
Well, everybody, you know, being a professor, I mean, it's easy to talk, but when something like this occurs, we all hope that we will handle things sensitively. But we're human beings too. Let's face it. We get up on the wrong side of the bed in the morning. We're ignorant of certain things. We're not aware of things going on in our classroom all the time. So one would wish we're perfect, but unfortunately we're just human beings and we do make mistakes.
Do you think any disciplinary action should be taken?
As someone who's supposed to be educating students, do you feel that that's very positive how he should?
Well, I frankly, you know, I'm sure if he had it to do over again, he would do it differently. We all make mistakes. I don't think, you know, I'm not condoning what happened. I'm just saying that this is something that is difficult. There's a lot of things going on the first weeks of school. It's not so easy.
Why isn't Wilson here?
If we could hold some of these questions till later, I'd like to ask the people who are speaking to hang around, and because we do have quite a long list here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have a student here that goes to LA City College. He is a person who's HIV positive. It's Corey Roberts, and he's going to be speaking with you.
Yeah, I was glad to hear how exemplary a student Wayne is. He's been an amazing force on this campus. He's worked to bring around AIDS awareness for people, for minorities. He's worked very hard on this campus and had a 3.97 average, as well as living with AIDS and having been sick many times, and he came back to this campus time and again. I'm here today as a student at LACC and as a person with HIV disease, and I'm really appalled at the way Wayne has been treated, at the indifference and injustice that has been acted out on this campus. DJ Wilson's ignorance 10 years into an epidemic that has claimed the lives of 140,000 Americans is disgusting. It is disgusting. The LACC's district's inactivity, indifference, and denial is criminal. This campus organized this week a rally in support of Magic Johnson. 100 people showed up for that rally. We've been flyering around this campus. We had petitions going around this campus, and the support for Wayne was not that great. Where are the 100 students now? Where are they in support of a student living with AIDS on this campus that has worked to make this campus a better place for them? And how can those of us who are affected or are infected with HIV come to this campus when the administration has not done anything? The administration has denied and ignored this situation. How can we come to this school when we know that our lives are not important to this campus? What is important to this campus and to the district is their image. That's what it's important. I think that this is criminal. And I would like to hear from someone who is in the administration where we are going to go with this and what they are going to do and how they are going to change this. if they're instituting a policy now, I'm very glad about that. And if they finally have opened up the bungalow that is off campus to deal with HIV and AIDS awareness, I'm glad that they finally opened it up. But 2 years ago they had a policy and they haven't done anything about it. Do you see flyers or posters on this campus around HIV and AIDS education and prevention? No. Do you see condom distribution? No. Do you see classes held? Yes. You see them now. You see them after this event. They finally did a seminar, and recently they did one for students. They're just getting active around that, and I'm very glad that that's happening. But what about Wayne's life? What about Wayne? Is he going to fall through the cracks? That's what we're looking at here, Wayne falling through the cracks, and that's criminal. Thank you.
Next, we're going to hear from Albert Salcido. He's with El Centro del Pueblo.
Good morning. I've known Wayne for about 3 years. He's helped us voluntarily, and I don't know what this school teaches as far as HIV, but through paperwork it's impossible to transmit this deadly virus. I would wish that Wayne wouldn't have to go through this stress. It's not helping him at all, or anyone that's HIV positive. I would like that the schools would have more awareness to the students and the faculty. The administration itself should do more to make the students aware that there is no danger to anyone without HIV. Because a student does have HIV does not mean it's going to be spread. It's been proven. They've even talked about handing on condoms to students in lower grade schools. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Note, his name was misspelled. It is with an E, W-I-L-D-E-S, and he'll be the next speaker.
ACT-UP LA has taken a stand on this issue, and we are going to take action on this issue as well. ACT-UP LA believes that the act of discrimination by Don J. Wilson to Wayne Karr is unthinkable in 1991. ACT-UP LA feels that the mishandling of this case has gone on long enough, and it is time to stop sweeping AIDS under the rug. Fact, school president Jose Robledo, and I quote, says that Wilson's remarks violated college policy and federal laws. Fact, Wilson had to seek medical professionals to find out whether AIDS could be contracted by grading Wayne Karr's papers.
No.
The division of Wilson's class was a decision by Jose Robledo and a way of not dealing with the issues of misconduct, unprofessionalism, outright discrimination, homophobia, AIDS phobia, the violation of federal law, 2 violations of LA City College's own policy on AIDS. And our message goes to Chancellor Phelps and the Board of Trustees. In your attempt to sweep this issue under the rug, you are guilty of perpetuating AIDS apathy and ignorance and homophobia. I say that if this had happened to Magic Johnson, Chancellor Phelps and the Board of Trustees would have been outraged and the laws would have been upheld.
That's right. Right.
But this happened to a gay man with AIDS. And so it is up to grassroots organizations like Queer Nation and ACT UP to uphold the law. So with that, ACT UP demands that all educators on this campus be educated about AIDS. We also demand that AIDS education and sensitivity be taught to everyone enrolled and employed at LA City College. ACT UP demands that the AIDS information building off this campus be moved onto this campus, it be opened and staffed, condoms and dental dams be made available for everyone. ACT UP also demands the immediate termination of Don J. Wilson, no sooner than today. Until Chancellor Phillips and the Board of Trustees began supporting AIDS education on this campus, ACT-UP must condone the classroom takeover and teach-in performed by Queer Nation on 9/26/91, and we would anticipate that this type of action will take place again until this matter is resolved. Stop AIDS! Fight back! ACT UP!
Stop it!
Thank you, Lee. Next, we have David Smith from the Gay and Lesbian Community Services Center.
Thanks. I'll be real quick. My name is David Smith. I'm with the Los Angeles Gay and Lesbian Community Services Center. I think the message here is real simple. Discrimination against people with AIDS and HIV disease is repugnant. It is just basically repugnant. And every time it rears its head, it needs to be confronted. And that's what Wayne here has done, and that's why we at the center applaud his courage, his conviction for everybody with HIV disease and AIDS, including myself, a gay man with HIV disease. Thanks.
Thank you, David. Next, we have Mario Solis Marich with the AIDS Project Los Angeles. Thank you.
As the one of the state's largest AIDS service providers, and the second largest AIDS service providers in the county, AIDS Project Los Angeles condemns the inaction by the Board of Trustees for the Los Angeles Community Colleges. Its inaction, its inability to respond quickly, and its ability to sweep this under the rug is completely distasteful and in fact is harmful to people living with HIV disease. We stand firmly behind Wayne Karr, as we have all people with HIV and all people with AIDS, and we call on the county colleges and on the state college system to respond with education, with compassion, and with funding for AIDS services centers on college campuses, not off college campuses. We reiterate to the Board of Trustees of the community colleges that they need to respond and respond quickly. People with AIDS and people with HIV are on their campuses, and they must, as a Board of Trustees, uphold their commitment to the education of all people regardless of their disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. Next, representing Queer Nation, we have Ellen Sherman.
The basic reasons we are here is an educator's lack of education, stupidity, an educational institution's lack of action, lack of promised action. DJ Wilson proved his ignorance about HIV/AIDS by contemplating denying a student's right to an education. This institution responded only after this incident was made public. Promised was a grievance hearing, AIDS education for all faculty members, and Wilson's personal education on the subject. To our knowledge, none of this has occurred. Jose Robledo, the grievance committee, has twice denied Mr. Karr a voice. Affirmative action has not voiced a decision. Minimal education of faculty has occurred, and Wilson, that's DJ, not Pete, although it applies here too, has occurred. With all that said, this institution only reflects the society it is housed in. It has taken this country 15 years to get hip to the fact that AIDS doesn't discriminate, which makes sense for a country which was established on hatred and prejudice. However, it is unacceptable for this institution and this country, but that's another conference. It's unacceptable for this institution to perpetuate the stupidity. Affirmative action must make a decision. A grievance hearing must be held. Wilson must publicly apologize to Mr. Karr and all people who are HIV positive and who have AIDS. And all educators must be educated. Students educating our educators is a shame. Magic Johnson isn't a hero, nor is he the first proclaimed heterosexual to be HIV positive. It's people like Mr. Karr that have been involved, been out there educating, who have been fucked over by the system, who are our heroes. All the people who have died with AIDS, and all the people blamed for having AIDS, those are our heroes. We are waiting with disgust for this institution to respond. We are watching, and we will continue to act on this institution's lack of action. We are here, we're all susceptible to AIDS, have been for over a decade, and so have you.
Thank you, Ellen. And now we have W. Wayne Karr, who's going to speak about the situation.
Good morning, and thank you all for being here. What everybody else said, ditto, 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 and more. You know, I've never felt that I was an AIDS victim. I've worked years to remove that stigma or that language, to get it out of our language about people living with HIV disease, because I truly believe there are no AIDS victims. I've been living with AIDS for 5 years, living very well with AIDS for 5 years. I can tell you that, and I don't say this with pride, and I don't say this because I feel good about it, but I'm telling you because it's the truth. On September 19th, 1991, I began dying of AIDS in DJ Wilson's classroom. Since that incident, and you've heard the details of that incident, actually you didn't hear everything. The contempt he shows for law, for federal, state, and city laws. When I informed him that I had a legal right to be in that classroom, his response was, well, if I have to, I'll see you in court.
Shame.
Since then, I have lost quite a bit of weight. I have developed shingles. I'm under a lot of care, psychological and physiological. And I can tell you that knowing this disease as intimately as I do, this is a direct result of what was allowed to happen in that classroom. The school needs to be condemned and criticized and held totally responsible for all of their AIDS ignorance. Primarily, they have an AIDS education policy. Those of you who have press releases, you might read it and see that he was in clear violation of many of those policies. What is the point of having a policy if it's not enforced? Another issue around that is there is a policy, but there is no guideline to protect the student to respond to a violation of this policy. Grievance hearing sends it over to the Affirmative Action Office. Affirmative Action Office sends it back to the grievance people. It's bullshit. Oh, excuse me. It's not acceptable. A few other things. I won't make this real long, and I'd like, if you want to talk to me later, you can talk to me. The student population of this campus, if you look and see who the students are on this campus, they're at it's a very, very high risk group. If this is an institution of higher learning, where education is supposed to take place, and you have a time bomb ready to explode on this campus, where the potential for HIV disease could be it could already be running rampant, and have an institution that does nothing to educate, to protect, to promote safe sex, to tell the truth about HIV disease rather than hide it, rather than be ashamed of it, is unacceptable. I want you to know also the whole story with what's going on with this thing. I graduated last semester, magna cum laude, salutatorian, with a 3.97 grade point average. I was an outstanding student. When that happened in that room, and then subsequently the split of the class, overnight I became an ostracized person. I could no longer participate equally in any class, especially that class, but any class on this campus. And I wonder if LACC is familiar with Brown versus the Board of Education. Separate is not equal. There are many things I'd like to say, and I don't really have a lot of time. I've asked people to quote me before, especially the local paper on campus. They will not. I want to tell you today so people can hear this very clearly. The way LACC has responded to the whole situation is to create a fag with AIDS class. I want to know when they're going to have the nigger class, when they're going to have the spick class, when are they going to have the bitch class? When? The whole situation is unacceptable. We will not tolerate it. I personally will not tolerate it. The HIV-affected community will not tolerate this, and we will hold them accountable until this matter is resolved the way we want it resolved. Wilson is out of the classroom. Wilson will apologize publicly to all persons living with HIV disease. LACC will enforce its existing AIDS policy, and AIDS discrimination will end. Lastly, the Magic Johnson angle on this whole thing. I want to say, excuse me, as a person with AIDS, living with HIV disease and working with excuse me, slow down. that I respect Magic tremendously, and I respect his courage, and I'm glad that he's come out. But there's a few things that really bother me about this whole thing. He's a human being. I'm a human being. My friends, the 140,000 people who are dead, were human beings. They had the same value and worth as Magic. And to watch this country and the media all of a sudden begin to care about AIDS. You know, we've worked for years. We've worked for years to get information out to the public. And we get an article here. We get a story there. And then we're supposed to be grateful because we got some media coverage. Well, let me tell you something. The most humiliating thing, the worst message that could ever be sent to people with AIDS was the day after Magic came out, and all of the information for the first time in 11 years was in one place. You could all read it. This country needs to be shamed to death for this. It is unacceptable.
Shame.
One other thing about Magic, and I want to keep this going, that I don't want to say I don't respect Magic. I do. I know what it's like to come forward with your HIV status.
They do know.
I hope Magic realizes, I hope he hears some of this today and realize what he will face eventually. 5 years of living with AIDS, I really didn't have a problem. I got to the point of thinking, well, if you're out with this thing, it's okay. 5 years later, I get destroyed in a classroom and a campus that gave me back my life. I want Magic to know this is part of the reality. People are going to step on you. People are going to abuse you. Look how America's waiting. They want to pin something on him. You know, they're turning on one of their favorite heroes. If they can get, they're hungry to hear, well, maybe he got it this way, so that they can again put AIDS in the closet. It's unacceptable.
Wayne, for the record, would you again please tell me what your alleged professor told you on that day?
No, I don't. Allegation is a nifty little word that I don't really like. I don't allege. I am telling you that Professor D.J. Wilson, when I arrived in class 35 minutes late, said, "Young man, you're out of the class." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because you're late." I said, "You said last week that if we had a doctor's excuse, it would be okay." The next thing, I'm not exactly clear, but it was something questioning the way, I didn't look sick was the inference. I said, well, I have AIDS, tried to hand him the doctor's excuse. Verbatim was, and the gesture is real important, "I really wish you hadn't told me that."
Is the class a witness of this?
Yes, but most of them are, well, yes. And there are witnesses, and they've already gone public, and they're in the press packet.
Was that the end of the incident?
No, it's not the end of the incident. I said, why? He said, because I have considerations. And it's my classroom. I said, well, what are these considerations? Well, I don't know if I want to handle your papers. You know, they don't know everything there is to know about AIDS. I then informed him that they very much do. There are 3 modes of transmission. Since we weren't sleeping together and having unsafe sex, since we weren't sharing needles, and since he isn't my mother and I'm not his fetus, or vice versa, he had nothing to be concerned about. The class broke. We came back. I thought he had a moment of clarity. He walked in the room and said, "I want to apologize to the student with AIDS." So I'm like, oh, okay. He proceeded to then say, "I'm sorry if I embarrassed you, but you're the one that said you had AIDS." My response was, I'm not embarrassed about my disease, and that's not the point. He said, well, I'll tell you again that I have considerations. This is my classroom, and I have to think about it, and I'll let you know next week. I said, you have nothing to think about. There are federal, city, and state laws protecting my right to be in this classroom. His response was, well, then I might just have to see you in court.
He does not deserve to be a teacher in this institution.
What's interesting you need to know is the following week, Mr. Wilson's attorney printed a letter in the school newspaper, which is in your packets, claiming that one of his reasons were that he had considerations and he needed to contact some health specialists. The specialists he contacted were not HIV specialists, A. I mean, if you're going to have open heart surgery, do you go to a podiatrist for their opinion? I think not. But what you need to know is he supposedly got his education and still the following week in the classroom still refused, which is on video from other media, still refused to touch my papers.
The administration says that they have been unable to find anyone in your class to come forward to corroborate your story. Why do you think that is?
First of all, I don't think that's true. I don't believe that the possibilities were exhausted. Many of the students that witnessed and are willing to come forward work full-time, attend school part-time. I know for a fact that I spoke to 2 just before I came to the press conference, and they will be in touch with the campus. Also, I think...
Their names are in the articles.
Yeah, that's what I want to say. Many of these students have already gone public. They're quoted in those articles who say exactly what went down, which totally support what I had to say. But I will also say that Mr. Wilson intimidates and uses it quite effectively. He has, this is a fact, he has threatened may not be the correct word, he has informed the Collegian, the school newspaper, that he will sue them for slander or libel if they're not absolutely accurate. These threats coming from a public educator carry a lot of weight when you're talking with students and faculty. The second week of class, when we walked back into that room, Wilson also said, he started the class by saying, okay, all you students know that nothing happened here last week. You know, give me a break. There's one last thing that's really important, and then I'll stop, and if there's any questions, we can ask them later. The message that Wilson sent to the students, and you can ask anybody around the night of the coordination action, there are students at this campus who really are not AIDS educated. His actions educated them. He's responsible. By being in a position of power, students bought his line or the inference that AIDS could be transmitted through paper. And we confronted students in the hallway after the demo, and many students said, well, maybe that's right, you can get AIDS. I don't know if you can understand the scope of the damage that has been done to the people here, to the students, and physically to myself.
Professing ignorance.
That's it for me. Okay, thanks. My attorney should be here.
LAPD is threatening him, so we have to get him on campus. Pat?
If people wanted to know what happened, LAPD is right up front. It's like they
marked car that was coming up this way.
So we had him removed.
But he went down that way in the unmarked car. So that's what I'm saying.
What exactly just happened?
I'm not sure. I was standing there where everybody else was standing.
I was in there. He already threw me out.
Okay.
He wouldn't talk to me.
It's Professor DJ Wilson. He's in Franklin Hall. He's part of the political science department. So you can find him.
Oh, okay. Come on, Susan. I'll show you where it is.
I have to say that
there were some unmarked cars, and the group afraid of intimidation and threat. So when the whistles sounded, they escaped.
All our life being black. All our lives. They can't deal with it. But I it's wrong. Because that's what I'm talking about. Everybody, if you touch people, everybody.
All right, well,
don't push him on me. Don't push him on me. God
Too many white men in this country with cameras.
Light straight on.
Oh, no, he's not white. He's Mexican.
Oh, wow. Who is this?
I was supposed to speak with the administration this morning to find out if they had get some other white men.
Yeah, they want to be white anyway. They want to be white anyway. They just playing it off today. They want to be. Come on. They want to be something that they're not. Johnny.
Toughest police community, 7 times the old election. So decide what this is.
you know where it is?
And the teachers say that you can catch A by your piece of paper or something.
I saw it too. I'm not sure.
The teachers say that you can catch A by, they write a piece of paper and they hand it to you. That's really naive. You can catch A.
What's your official representative?
You want praise? You want press?
You know what? You're lying,
Do you want your message to get across? Do you want press?
What is this, a threat?
Taking license plate numbers is not press.
Is this a threat or something?
Yo pienso que la administración de esta institución de educación pública y como una educación principal que existe en el medio educativo americano, este tipo de discriminación por parte de un profesor no debe de ser tolerada. La administración tuvo ya 2 oportunidades de crear una solución a este problema y ninguna de las personas involucradas, incluyendo Robledo, es la única persona que tiene el poder de tener una acción inmediata y una respuesta inmediata al estudiante que ha sido discriminado, y además de que deben de correr, de deshacerse de un profesor así, que discrimine en contra de los derechos humanos en una institución de este tipo de educación. Yo condeno tanto al profesor como a la administración de esta institución por su falta de acción, y además también a los estudiantes que fueron testigos y que no tienen ningún sentido moral de venir de frente y hablar en contra de este tipo de discriminación que existe en contra de gente con ciencia.
Do you guys have any more folders left?
You sure did. I remember you.
Yeah.
God, the cars.
Yeah. What?
These can't be all school security.
No, they're police.
Yeah.
They're smart.
I
They're
wish I
smart.
filmed them. Benjamin. Now we'll see if you can remember my full name, Benjamin Peter Cable McCarthy.
I remember the cable from last night.
Yeah.
We'll call you Benjamin Cable.
Hmm?
Benjamin Cable.
It's like Crystal Carrington Colby.
Dexter.
Alexis Morel, Carrington Colby, Dexter Colby.
You know what I thought of you?
I guess
Along with Fernando.
let's make sure. Not here yet? We'll have it every
Yesterday?
He was gonna rock.
Gay rights activists at Los Angeles City College are demanding that a political science teacher be fired. The Queer Nation group accuses Professor Don Wilson of publicly degrading 37-year-old student Wayne Karr because Karr is HIV infected. Karr says that teacher Wilson refused to handle a doctor's letter offered him by the student when Karr told him he had AIDS. He also accuses the college of being negligent of AIDS patients and laid out demands.
Wilson is out of the classroom. Wilson will apologize publicly to all persons living with HIV disease. LACC will enforce its existing AIDS policy, and AIDS discrimination will end.
And the group Queer Nation is also demanding that all teachers undergo sensitivity training. Paul.
We have heard stories and
the country should concentrate on promoting monogamous, loving relationships, ones that practice safe sex.
There are reports tonight of new drug-resistant strains of tuberculosis appearing here in L.A. County. Health officials say they're monitoring the situation very closely in hopes of preventing the spread of that disease. So far, it's been limited to just a few cases.
The TB bacteria, like many bacteria, has the ability to develop resistance to antibiotics or the anti-tuberculous drugs.
The most vulnerable to the new strains of tuberculosis are the homeless and the poor. TB is caused by a lingering bacteria that leaves a painful and long-lasting cough, as well as intense fevers, swollen glands, and even death. County health officials worried that a new drug-resistant strain of that disease, which has killed more than a dozen people in New York, may now be appearing in Los Angeles.
There isn't just one strain. It can be many strains of the bacteria that develop the resistance. And every community, including this one, has persons with TB that have developed resistance.
Also deeply affected by TB are immigrants from developing countries with children who haven't had much access to health care. In Los Angeles, new cases of tuberculosis